All right, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is, I'll name this segment later, GTG spits that grease, etc., etc., etc. Title in the works. Ladies and gentlemen, if the title of this video hasn't given me away yet, I'd like to ask you guys, what would a Darksydephil X Kino Casino X LOLCOW Live look like? How would a one-off, right? An interview type setting, if you will. What would that show look like? What would that entail? So for me, excuse me, to be honest, I mean, first off, as it pertains to what's it gonna look like as it pertains to Kino or to LOLCOW Live, honestly, it should be just Keem, Wings, Boogie, and maybe you can bring Becky up there from LOLCOW Queens, maybe. But nah, actually just keep it 3-on-3. You know, just the three main people on LOLCOW Live and then DSP plus Kino Casino. What would that look like really? Because I know PPP and Andy would have been really hyped up for that. DSP wanted no parts of it, hence the reason why it didn't happen. We don't really know what LOLCOW Live would have thought about that. To be honest, I guess it depends on what they choose to talk about. Are they gonna, like PPP and Andy can, I don't know how much, well, Andy obviously and PPP have a lot of experience with Keem because of Happy Punch as well as some other things. I don't know about Boogie and Wings so much, what PPP and Andy actually know about or how much contact they've had with them. And then obviously for DSP, Keem can finally say, ha ha ha, we got you. You know, we finally got you up here, this, that, and the third. And I think, honestly, if you look at it from different perspectives, let's look at it from DSP's perspective. He should be looking at it as a feeling out process. Like, okay, if I am on here on a regular basis or whatnot, what would my situation look like? What are the topics that you guys go over? I don't want to really do any of the antics or anything. I'm not interested in that bullshit. I'm interested in coming up here and quote unquote having intelligent, insightful conversations about certain topics that are going on in social media, pop culture, video games, so on and so forth. Even though LOLCOW Live has kind of evolved past all that, it's very much really become the LOLCOW version of Drama Alert, to be honest. It could be better, but that's pretty much what they've become, to be honest with you. If you're Kino Casino, you're looking at you're looking at fucking LOLCOW Live like there's something to eat. There are plenty of shots to take at Boogie. There's plenty of shots to take at Wings, even with their limited knowledge of them. And you're really just talking shop and talking things up with Keem, to be honest with you, about anything and everything. There are plenty of people, they float around some similar circles, despite there's probably very limited interaction between them. But they float around similar circles, and they've certainly run into each other at one time or another. There's plenty to speak on as it pertains to the respectability or the perspectives of LOLCOW Live and Kino Casino. It's just a great opportunity to talk of shop, to be honest with you. If the show has any structure and they decide to go over any of the current events, the Destiny situation, which is a big thing, the Hassan Piker situation, going over the Jake Paul fight, what Logan Paul is dealing with as it pertains to the crypto scams and shit. There's plenty of internet nonsense to go over. I think they could really just chop it up, and I think honestly it could be rather interesting. It could be a rather interesting back and forth. Funny enough, a no-lo, I can't remember if that's supposed to be is that like some type of archaic term for a third wheel or whatever? I'm not really quite sure. I could look it up, I guess. But the context that he tries to make it seem like, I know it's supposed to be a no-life, but it sounds like it's supposed to be a term for like a third wheel or some shit. DSP would theoretically, in that context of going back and forth about drama and this, that, and third, and some of these different people there, DSP is literally like the odd man out. So Wings or Boogie would have to figure out a way to finagle him into that conversation. Now, obviously, PPP would prep him beforehand, but even with all the prep work in the world won't help DSP. So somehow they're going to have to finagle him in. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how that would look. As a one-off, I think it would be rather success. I think PPP and Andy will shine bright. I think the back and forth between Boogie, Keem, and Wings will probably work out really well. and DSP is just going to end up being a slub or and whatever the fuck. And I don't think it's going to mean a whole lot, to be honest, unless they can basically force DSP into the conversation. And if he has some good takes, which I don't think he would, to be honest with you, I don't think he's going to have any good takes because he doesn't have any personal investment in it. It's not like with the Review Tech USA situation. He was he still is, but he's heavily invested in that. And some of the conversations they've had about side scrollers, he's heavily invested in that. He didn't have any investment in COG. He didn't have any investment in Ralph. He doesn't give, outside of his jealousy for the Paul brothers, he don't give a shit about that shit. He don't care much about Destiny, even though Destiny did take some shots at him back in 2017 over the used car market. But even then, DSP probably don't even remember that situation to its fullest. I don't think it would work out as great as you would think. Unless, excuse me, Kino Casino and LOLCOW Live get so frustrated with DSP that both sides just start taking shots at him. Just literally start shooting shots across the bow and see whatever hits him first. But DSP don't know how to banter, nor does he know how to handle banter. So I don't think it would mean a whole lot. I don't think too much would come out of it, to be honest. Not without Wings or Boogie having to side with him to help him out. So from a banter / just conversation standpoint, they're not going to get anything out of him. If you're talking about current subjects or topics, they're going to get literally milk toast takes out of him. Nothing comes out of that. If you talk about, even if they were to talk to him about games, like the state of the game industry, how current games look, how they play, how immersive they are, what value does that present? He doesn't have anything on the ball for that either, because as I've been preaching to y'all since the GDC thing came out, he's part of the problem. DSP is literally part of the problem. And the thing is someone like Boogie or Wings who's tapped in, they know that. They may never admit it, but they know that. They know for sure. Because trust me, when DSP came up in that GDC video, it was passed around everywhere. There's no way Wings and Boogie haven't seen it. They may never admit to it, but they damn sure saw it. They may have not have watched the whole video because that whole segment's like 40 minutes or some shit, but they're definitely not going to admit to that shit. DSP's part of the problem on why the gaming industry is the way it is. I don't see Boogie or Wink confronting him on that. He might. Andy might. Well, I don't think Andy will. I think Andy should, but he probably won't. But Keem, if he knows about it, he might. But they're not gonna. They're more than likely not gonna do it, because that is, no, fuck it. I think it's a weight that DSP should have on his fucking piggy shoulders. Even though most people feel like you can't just contribute all of it to him, but to be honest, he's the type of mark. He's the type of regular consumer, if you will, that the game industry targets. They want to make games that are easily digestible, but yet can be packed with microtransactions that dumbasses will throw money at, to be honest. And he's perfect for that. He's literally perfect. Look at the whole situation with Smart Guys right now. He's gone from digitally playing WWE Champions and WWE Supercard respectfully, to now he's still playing WWE Champions on 2 different accounts, no less. But now he's also buying physical cards, which were damn near worthless, to be honest with you, because the demand for wrestling trading cards are nowhere near the value of football, baseball, and basketball cards, which is something that even I still collect. So that's the thing. He doesn't bring anything. He doesn't bring anything to it. Not unless the show is structured and catered, which is crazy for me to say this. The show would have to be structured and catered to him and to his strengths and weaknesses. The funny thing is, or the irony is, his strengths and weaknesses are the exact same thing. So let's reword this. The way the show needs to be catered to him, it has to be structured in such a way where here's the stories, read this, give us your opinion, go to the next story. Kind of like what a Review Tech USA in that way. They both need to be spoon-fed what the story is with full context, and then ask for their opinion, and then just move on to the next thing. Don't give them any time to think about anything else. Don't give them any time to try to meander over bullshit. Just immediately push on to the next story. That's pretty much it. Because neither one of them really have a very good sense of humor. Neither one of them really show any type of intellectual curiosity. It is what it is. The more I think about it, the more you think about DSP and Review Tech USA, the more things that you could say that they're different realistically, the more they're the same, to be honest. So you kind of have to approach it in the exact same way. The irony is of that, right, because I'm an asshole, is Review Tech has already failed in that system, right? When he was with Jay, and Jay was basically putting together all the stories, and all Rich had to do was give his opinion on it, he failed at it. They take that shit over to LOLCOW Tech Talk, which was basically the same thing Rich and Jay were already doing. Jay excelled because he didn't have the threat of Review Tech over his head, and Review Tech failed. So Jay is still over there. He's over there with Jaffe. Review Tech is out, and now Review Tech ain't sat there and rebranded to try to get himself back into that system under that umbrella, and he's failing miserably at it. I think DSP would be no different. Like, unless they put him in, they would literally have to put him in the position where he does nothing, where he literally just goes up there and collects a paycheck, and that's it. That's the only way he can really work, because you can't put him on any of the other shows in the LOLCOW universe and he'll be able to help carry the show like Boogie and Wings do, respectfully. And truth be told, I believe Boogie could do it, and he's proven that he can multiple times. I didn't really think Wings could, but he carried LOLCOW Talk once or twice. He carried a few of the other shows a couple times as well, or at least he helped manage it when the in-house pedophile over there with LOLCOW Live wasn't available. So there was that. I'm surprised that it happened, but it did happen. DSP would never show the flexibility to do so. And I don't care how much prep time Kino Casino had with him to do so, he would never be able to get it done. So, truth be told, I don't think it would be as beneficial as we think. And truth be told, maybe Kino Casino didn't want it to be. Maybe they just wanted DSP, and this goes back to something that I'm constantly saying, so I'm contradicting myself a bit. Maybe they were just trying to use DSP as a stepping stone to get their foot into the door with LOLCOW Live, and then they get to showcase their shit. And DSP's just there. Stick his ass in the corner like you would with Derek or any of the other dents over there, right? And just stick him over in the corner and let the grown folk talk their business. And then on the way out, okay, don't forget to go ahead and get our dent. Okay, come on, Phil. Come on, let's go. Time to go home. And then they pick up and leave with him. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what that plan is. And that plan could still be salvaged, just without DSP. But that plan could still very well be salvaged for Kino Casino if they wanted to get in, have a crossover event with LOLCOW Live. 2025, ladies and gentlemen, is, like I said, it's the year of content creation. So on top of people making content, branching out, building alliances or whatever, be careful who you choose to do alliances with, of course, but building alliances and building those relationships is what needs to happen. And if you're spending as much time and playing as hard as some of these people are, you got to keep the door open. If DSP wants to sit there and be a hermit and just keep bleeding the same idiots until they're bled out, then so be it. But for everybody else, they're going to make moves. And when DSP don't have any options, when he don't have any choices, that's when the desperation comes in, and that's when he's willing to just do anything. Because you saw with Kino Casino how he was a good little whore. He was willing to get into the foot fetish shit. He was showing his underwear and shit. He was prancing around and shit like a sissy or whatever the fuck DSP likes to word it. He was willing to do all that. Just imagine getting that on LOLCOW Live. And that's what I think PPP envisioned for a crossover with LOLCOW. That get him up there a couple times, get him comfortable, and maybe they could get him prancing around, trying to do push-up challenges, whatever. And I just don't think it could happen. I think DSP was so heavily invested in PPP and Andy, his gaming soulmate, and then PPP, who was his rock, if you will. He was so heavily invested, he didn't mind prancing around on his own stream doing that shit. But would he really do that? But that's, you're doing that in front of less than 1,000 people. Can you get DSP to do that in front of 5,000 people? 7,000 people, 10,000 people. I don't know. I don't know if you could do that. I want to say that I don't know if you could do that. That's all I can say. I don't know if you could make that happen. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's a thing. But what do you guys think? How do you guys feel about it? Let me know. But that's what I think a crossover between Darksydephil, Kino Casino, and LOLCOW Live could look like, and what it would look like. Of course, excuse me, given the fallout, that's not happening. Now, the Kino Casino arc isn't over yet. I want to make sure that's very clear. I got a video actually in the works. I've kind of got the outline for it in my head on that situation. The Kino Casino arc isn't over yet. As long as DSP is on kick, the game ain't, that part of his arc isn't over yet. I don't think the Kino Casino arc really ever ends, to be honest with you. But for sure, I don't think it's a thing while DSP is on kick. He has to go to Twitch. The monetization thing is supposed to happen sometime in, I don't know when, sometime this year. I've had people kind of say, hey, it might happen around May-ish, maybe. So, you know, April, May, June, let's say May-ish. So we'll see what happens at the earliest, at the very least. And we'll see what happens. But the Kino Casino arc is not over. That is not a thing. It's still very much ongoing. There's so much material. There's so much viewership and money to still be made off of DSP. That doesn't mean they turn into full detractors or whatever. I honestly think Kino Casino is just gonna do it right and just make him a segment on their show. He doesn't have to be the segment on their show every time, but just make him a segment on there. Just like how Josh from the Kiwi Farms occasionally talks about DSP when things really kind of, you know, implode in such a way where it catches his attention. Other than that, you know what I'm saying? It's just like what Medicare tried to tell SOK all those years ago. DSP is always going to be there. He'll always be there. And he'll always be getting himself into some type of mess. You can always come back to him. Same type of concept. So anyway, thank you guys very much for listening in. I very much appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys for the next one of these, whenever that may be. This is, I'll name the segment later. GTG spits that grease, etc., etc. I'll catch y'all on the flip. Later, people.